Today we're going to explore the fascinating life of Walter Henry Medhurst.
Oh, this should be interesting.
He was a true champion of cultural exchange, a scholar, a missionary, a printer.
A man of many talents.
You could say that.
Yeah.
And we have a biography all about his life right here.
So where does this story begin?
Well, it all starts in London in 1796.
Okay.
Walter was born into a merchant family, so you might think.
Destined for a life of trade.
Right. But they had other plans. Exactly. Those plans involved a printing press. His apprenticeship as a printer in Gloucester sparked a lifelong passion for the written word.
That's pretty common, I think. For people who work with words and books, it often becomes more than just a job.
Oh, definitely. And for Medhurst, this passion fueled his mission to spread knowledge and, of course, his religious beliefs.
Ah, so this is where the missionary part comes in.
Yes. At just 17, he had a profound religious experience and joined the London Missionary Society.
The LMS?
Right. The LMS was devoted to spreading Christianity worldwide.
Wow, so he decides to become a missionary. That's a pretty big decision, especially at such a young age.
It really is. And on his way to Malacca, a British settlement in Southeast Asia, he stopped in Madras and met Elizabeth Martin and fell head over heels. They got married and continued their journey together.
The whirlwind romance.
I know, right? Talk about a memorable journey. They finally arrived in Malacca in 1817,
Okay.
a world away from London. And he didn't waste any time. He teamed up with William Milne, who was already working at the Anglo-Chinese College.
Now, what was the Anglo-Chinese College all about?
It was quite a unique institution, actually. It was founded to promote understanding between East and West.
Sounds right up Medhurst's alley.
It really was. And with his talent for languages, he quickly mastered Chinese.
Not just the language, I'm guessing.
No, the culture, too.
Yeah.
All the nuances that go with it. But don't forget his background as a printer.
Right.
He saw printing and publishing as incredibly powerful tools for spreading his message.
Makes sense. He understood how to reach people.
Exactly. And he was innovative, too. He set up this really sophisticated printing operation across Southeast Asia, both woodblock printing
The traditional Chinese method.
and the newer lithographic printing from Europe.
Wow. So he was blending old and new techniques.
He was. It's
Yeah.
almost like a foreshadowing of the impact he'd have in China later on.
Interesting. So what kinds of things was he publishing?
Well, between 1823 and 1842, he published 30 books in Chinese.
30. That's impressive.
I know, right? And they covered a variety of topics, from the gospel to history and geography.
So not just religious tracts.
No, he wanted to engage with Chinese culture on its own terms.
Yeah.
Share knowledge, not just preach.
That's a really important distinction. It shows a respect for the existing culture.
Absolutely.
Oh.
And his three-character classic about Christianity became very popular.
Three-character classic. Why that title?
It's actually a traditional Chinese primer. It uses three-character phrases to teach basic concepts. So Medhurst adopted that familiar format to explain Christianity.
Clever. Makes it more accessible, I bet.
And memorable. What's interesting is it stayed in print even after he moved on to other projects.
Must have really resonated with people.
I think so.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just because it was well written. It's because he wove in Confucian ideas into his explanations.
Uh-huh. So he was making connections between Christianity and existing Chinese thought?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He wanted to show how the two could coexist. He even adopted the pen name Shanghai,
Which means
one who esteems virtue in Chinese.
he was really going the extra mile to connect with a Chinese audience.
He was. But he didn't just sit behind a desk all day. He traveled extensively throughout Southeast Asia,
Oh, where did he go?
places like Singapore, Java, and Bali. He was incredibly curious about different cultures.
Sounds like he had a real adventurous spirit.
He did, and a compassionate one, too. He even established an orphanage in Batavia in 1833.
That's Jakarta today.
Right.
So his travels weren't just about exploration,
Definitely. He was putting his faith into action.
helping those in need.
Exactly. And his curiosity eventually led him to China itself. In 1835, he visited Guangzhou and explored the coast.
So this was his first time in China.
It was. He wanted to get a feel for the Christian communities that were already there and see if there were opportunities to expand his work.
Laying the groundwork.
We could say that. And this trip really set the stage for his most influential work.
Which is?
His book, China, Its State and Prospects, published in 1838.
Oh, I've heard of this book. What's so special about it?
Well, it wasn't just a travelogue. It was a deep dive into Chinese civilization, covering history, culture, daily life.
A comprehensive look at China.
Exactly. And he went into detail about groundbreaking Chinese inventions like the compass printing gunpowder.
technologies that had a huge impact on Europe.
It's true.
So he was not just informing a Western audience about China, he was trying to change their perception of it.
You hit the nail on the head. He wanted to challenge the Western view of China as a backward nation.
Right.
Because it wasn't true. He emphasized how sophisticated ancient Chinese technology was and argued that China had a lot to offer the West.
That was a pretty radical idea at the time, wasn't it?
It really was. And it helped pave the way for more genuine cultural exchange between China and the West.
A real turning point.
You could say that.
Mm.
And he didn't stop there. While in Batavia, he compiled 2 important dictionaries.
Oh, which ones?
A Chinese and English dictionary and a dictionary of the Hokkien dialect.
Hokkien. Now that's a specific dialect.
It is. It's spoken in southeastern China and parts of Southeast Asia.
Mm.
His dictionary had over 12,000 words.
Wow.
And provided valuable insights into the culture of Fujian province.
Where Hokkien originated.
Right. This guy never slowed down.
I know. That's quite a dedication to understanding the nuances of Chinese languages.
He really is. He believed that language was the key to unlocking cultural understanding. And then there's his General History of the World.
This one sounds intriguing.
It was unlike any history book I've ever seen. He presented Chinese and Western history side by side.
Side by side. How did that work?
Well, Chinese history started with the mythical figure Pangu and continued through the Qing dynasty, which was in power at the time.
Okay. And for the Western side?
He began with the biblical creation story and went all the way to the Industrial Revolution.
Wow. So he was placing these 2 seemingly separate historical narratives together.
He was showing how they were actually interconnected.
That's brilliant. It challenges the idea that Western history is somehow separate or superior to other histories.
Exactly. And he even wove in Christian messages and comparisons with Buddhism within the narrative.
Encouraging readers to think about different belief systems.
And how they relate to one another. He was way ahead of his time.
So we've got this scholar, missionary, printer, translator, and as if that wasn't enough.
He was also a pioneer of journalism in China. He founded several periodicals over the years.
Like?
The Chinese Monthly Magazine in Batavia, the Chinese Serial in Hong Kong, and the Universal Digest in Shanghai.
This is where his early experience with printing really paid off.
He didn't just write and translate. He actively modernized the Chinese publishing landscape, introduced Western printing technology like movable type and more efficient presses.
And that had
huge impact. It ushered in a new era of communication in China.
It's incredible how all these different threads of his life, his printing, his language skills, his passion for cultural understanding all came together.
It really is. He was a man of many talents and relentless energy.
And that energy led him to another monumental project, Bible translation.
Ah, yes. The delegate version.
He led the creation of not just 1, but 4 different Chinese versions of the Bible.
Wow. The delegate version was completed in Shanghai and went through a very thorough translation process.
How thorough are we talking?
A team of 5 people each with their own translator, including Wang Tao, the brilliant scholar we mentioned earlier.
Right.
They met every day for 6 years, meticulously going over every single word and nuance.
That's dedication.
It's amazing. It became the standard Chinese Bible used overseas by the British and Foreign Bible Society.
And all of this stemmed from Medhurst's vision.
His belief in the power of communication and understanding between cultures.
Truly remarkable. But wait, there's more to this story.
Oh, yes. Medhurst had one more groundbreaking achievement up his sleeve.
Which we'll save for part 2 of our deep dive.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the life of Walter Henry Medhurst. Picking up where we left off, Medhurst had a vision, a really groundbreaking idea.
You're talking about the Mohai Shuguan.
Exactly. The printing press he established in Shanghai in 1843.
It was the first Protestant mission in Shanghai, and it became the headquarters for the London Missionary Society.
You know, they called it Medhurst Circle. It was a hub for Western learning and cultural exchange.
And he used all of his printing experience from Southeast Asia to make it state-of-the-art.
So this was more than just translating and publishing.
Oh, yeah. This is about creating a physical space, a place where people could come together and exchange ideas.
It's amazing to think about the impact of that, at a time when China and the West were often at odds.
It was a bold move for sure. But let's not forget about the challenges Medhurst faced.
Right, like the Qingpu incident in 1848.
That must have been terrifying.
He and 2 colleagues were attacked while they were distributing religious materials.
It's a reminder that cultural exchange, even with the best intentions, can be dangerous.
Especially in a climate of political tension and suspicion.
It makes you wonder how he coped with all of that.
Well, he understood that effective communication wasn't just about language. It was about understanding the cultural context.
And being sensitive to the audience.
Exactly. He was a master of what we might call contextualized evangelism, tailoring his approach to the specific beliefs and needs of the people he was trying to reach.
So it wasn't about forcing Western ideas onto China.
Not at all. It was about building bridges, highlighting the strengths of both cultures.
And finding common ground.
Which is what he did in his General History of the World, presenting Chinese and Western history side by side.
Right. It was such an innovative approach, showing the interconnectedness of different cultures.
He was a man ahead of his time, and he never gave up on his mission, even when things got tough.
Speaking of tough, remember China was going through a lot of turmoil during this period.
The Opium Wars, the Taiping Rebellion, it was a time of immense change and upheaval.
And yet he persisted, advocating for cross-cultural communication and collaboration.
His legacy continues to inspire us today. It's a reminder that even in the face of adversity, we can find common ground and build a better future.
Sadly, though, Medhurst's time in China was coming to an end. In 1856, after decades of tireless work, he decided to return to England.
It must have been a bittersweet moment, leaving behind the life he'd built and the work he was so passionate about.
But also, I imagine he was looking forward to some well-deserved rest.
And to sharing his experiences with people back home.
But fate had other plans. Tragically, he died just 2 days after arriving in London.
At the age of 61.
It's heartbreaking to think he didn't get to enjoy the fruits of his labor or see the full impact of his life's work.
But his legacy lived on through his writings, his translations, and the institutions he founded.
He left behind an incredible body of work. 59 Chinese texts, 6 Malay texts, and 27 English texts.
Covering a wide range of topics from religion to dictionaries to history.
And of course, there was the Mohai Shuguan, the printing press he established in Shanghai.
Which continued to operate long after his departure, becoming a major center for the dissemination of Western knowledge in China.
It was a symbol of his vision, a place where East and West could meet and exchange ideas.
And let's not forget the delegate version of the Bible, which remained the most widely circulated Chinese translation for decades.
It's amazing to think about the lasting impact he had on both China and the West.
His influence is undeniable. Even in Shanghai, he was honored posthumously.
Medhurst College, later renamed Medhurst High School, was established in 1904.
And a street was named after him, Medhurst Road, now known as Taixing Road.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what are some of the key takeaways from Medhurst's story?
What stands out to me is his unwavering belief in the power of cultural understanding. He recognized that true communication requires empathy, curiosity, and a willingness to step outside one's own cultural framework.
He wasn't afraid to challenge preconceived notions and seek common ground, even in the face of immense challenges.
He was a true pioneer of cultural exchange, demonstrating that even in times of conflict, it's possible to build bridges of understanding and work towards a more harmonious world.
In the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore the broader historical context of Medhurst's life and the enduring impact of his legacy. Stay tuned. Welcome back to our deep dive. You know, as we explore Medhurst's life, it's important to remember the historical context.
Oh, absolutely. The 19th century was a time of huge global change.
A lot of upheaval.
Yeah, colonialism, industrialization, new ideologies emerging.
And Medhurst found himself right in the thick of it all.
Especially in China.
Right, with the Opium Wars going on.
Those conflicts really strained the relationship between Britain and China.
A lot of mistrust and resentment towards Westerners.
So Medhurst was working against this backdrop of suspicion and tension.
It must have been incredibly difficult.
It was. But he had this amazing ability to balance idealism and pragmatism.
How so?
Well, he deeply believed in the power of Christianity. But he also understood that he had to adapt his approach to the Chinese context.
He wasn't trying to impose Western values on China.
Not at all. He was looking for common ground.
Highlighting the strengths of both cultures.
Like in his General History of the World.
Where he presented Chinese and Western history side by side.
Such a radical approach.
Showing those connections.
That we're all part of one human story.
Exactly. And he was always innovating too.
Oh, yeah.
Bringing printing technology to China.
Which transformed how information was spread.
It really did. Printing might seem commonplace now, but back then it was revolutionary.
And Medhurst was a key figure in that transformation.
But it's not just about technology. It's about the relationships he built too.
Like with Wang Tao.
That collaboration was so important they learned from each other, created something new together.
And then there's the Mohai Shuguan.
The printing press in Shanghai,
It was a place where ideas could flourish.
where Chinese or Western scholars could connect.
And share knowledge.
Medhurst really left his mark.
He did. His life shows us that change often begins with those small steps. Individual connections, sharing knowledge.
It's inspiring.
It is. So as we wrap up our deep dive, what are some things we can take away from Medhurst's story?
Well, I think he embodied the power of empathy, curiosity, and stepping outside your comfort zone.
That willingness to see the world through different eyes.
And to appreciate other cultures.
He challenged us to become bridge builders.
To find common ground even when it's difficult.
It's a powerful message, and I think it's more relevant than ever in today's world.
I agree. We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the life of Walter Henry Medhurst. If his story has inspired you, we encourage you to learn more. There are many resources available to explore his life and legacy. Thanks for joining us.